Marry one of us, or both. Those were the words that shattered the silence inside the command chamber. Not a threat, not a demand, an offer. The room was vast, carved from black alloy and star glass, suspended high above the living city of Lutonia. A world built by the unwanted for the unwanted. A sanctuary where broken species gathered after being rejected, hunted, or erased by their own kind. And at the center of it all stood Archibald. Human. Commander. Feared. He did not sit on a throne. He had never needed one. Power followed him like gravity follows mass. Quiet, unavoidable, crushing. Entire species learned to lower their voices when his name was spoken. Some prayed to avoid his attention. Others prepared to die if they ever earned it. Before we dive in, drop a comment. We would like to hear from you. If you enjoy sci-fi stories like this one, be sure to like the video and subscribe. That night, even Lutonia held its breath. The doors opened without warning. No alarms, no announcement, just heat. A sudden wave of warmth rolled across the chamber, sharp and alive like the first breath of a star being born. Lights dimmed instinctively. Consoles flickered. Several beings stepped back without realizing they were afraid. Two figures walked in. They were identical, yet unmistakably different. Twin Draconians. Not beasts, not myths. Draconians. Tall, towering. Their bodies were shaped like living weapons, yet they moved with a restraint that spoke of discipline learned through pain. Scales shimmered along their skin, catching the light in colors that should not exist. Deep molten crimson on one, cold celestial blue on the other. Wings folded tightly behind them, vast and powerful, but deliberately kept low. They did not come in dominance. They came in silence. When they reached the center of the chamber, they stopped. Then, slowly, deliberately, they kneeled. The sound of draconian knees touching the floor echoed like a thunderclap. Every species in the room froze. Draconians did not kneel, ever. Archibald turned. His eyes met theirs, not with curiosity, not with awe, but the calm assessment of a man who had stared down extinction and never blinked. The one with crimson fire in her veins lifted her head first. Her name was Bellyth. Her eyes burned, but not with pride, with desperation carefully wrapped in control. "We know who you are, Commander," she said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled ever so slightly against the floor. Beside her, the second twin raised her gaze. Mythia. Her flame was quieter, colder, older somehow. "We were not born unwanted. We were made unwanted." She reached forward and placed something between them and the human commander. Ancient relics, draconian heirlooms, burned with symbols older than Lutonia itself. "Our parents are dead," Bellyth continued, her voice tightening just enough to betray the truth beneath it. "Killed by our own kind, because we were born female." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "We were told we were a mistake, a threat to tradition, a prophecy they feared," Mythia whispered. They both looked at Archibald now, not as rulers, not as dragons, as orphans. "We have nothing left," Bellyth said, "except what they could not destroy." Then she took a breath, a deep one, and spoke the words that would change the universe. "Marry one of us, or both."
The chamber went deathly still. Not even Archibald spoke, because somewhere between the kneeling of dragons and the silence of a human commander, the universe realized this was not a love story. This was the beginning of a reign.
Archibald did not step back. He did not harden. He did not look away. Instead, something far more dangerous happened. He listened. Not like a commander listening to a report, not like a ruler weighing outcomes, but like a man standing at the edge of something that could no longer be ignored. The chamber felt smaller now, not because of the dragons kneeling before him, but because the universe had quietly leaned in. Archibald walked forward, slowly. Each step echoed through the room, measured, deliberate, heavy with a history no one else there carried. Wars flickered behind his eyes, worlds he had seen burn, alliances he had watched rot, species that had begged for mercy only after it was too late. He stopped in front of them, close enough now to feel the heat radiating from their bodies. Not wild, not aggressive, controlled, contained, like stars held in fragile balance. "You came to me," he said at last, his voice calm but deep, "because you believe humans don't kneel to fate." Bellyth lifted her head slightly. "We came to you because humans survive what destiny demands." Archibald exhaled through his nose, slow, thoughtful. "You're asking for more than marriage. You're asking me to step into a war older than my species." Mythia met his gaze without flinching. "We are asking you to step into the future. The war will follow whether you do or not." That truth landed cleanly. Archibald turned his eyes to the relics on the floor, ancient, alive with memory. He crouched, not in submission but consideration, and extended his hand over them. The runes responded. They flared, not violently, recognizing. A low murmur spread across the chamber as the symbols aligned, not to draconian flame, but to human presence. Bellyth's breath caught. "They've never done that," she whispered. Archibald straightened. "You're not offering yourselves because you're desperate. You're offering yourselves because every other path ends in extinction." Mythia nodded once. Yes. The simplicity of it struck harder than any plea. Archibald looked at them again, not as dragons, not as royalty, but as what they truly were. Children who survived a world that tried to erase them. "You should know something," he said quietly. The room leaned closer. "I don't marry for power. I don't rule for prophecy. And I don't bind myself to futures written by people who are already dead." Bellyth's heart sank, just slightly. But then he continued. "I build futures where people like you don't have to kneel." The chamber went still. Archibald extended his hand, not to choose, not to claim, but to raise them. "Stand," he said. Slowly, carefully, the twin dragons rose to their feet. Eye to eye now, equal height, equal weight. "When you came to me," Archibald continued, "you didn't bring armies, you didn't bring threats, you brought truth." His gaze hardened, not at them, but at the universe beyond the walls. "That means whatever happens next will change far more than your throne." A pause, long, charged. "From this moment on, no one decides your fate without answering to me." A ripple of shock tore through the chamber. Bellyth's wings trembled. Mythia's eyes shimmered not with flame, but something far rarer, hope. And somewhere, deep in the unseen currents of reality, The prophecy shifted, not fulfilled, not denied, awakened. The first shockwave did not come with sound. It came with silence. Across Lutonia, conversations stalled mid-sentence. Councils froze with mouths half open. Species who had learned to read the rhythm of the city felt it instantly, like a sudden pressure drop before a storm. Information traveled fast on Lutonia, but this traveled faster. A draconian transmission pierced the planetary network without permission, without encryption, without apology. 2 signatures, twin flames, female, and 1 human name, Archibald. In the crystal assembly of the Vimo, elders shattered their own seats when the message resolved. Their translucent bodies flickered between hues of disbelief and terror. "A human?" one of them hissed. "They chose a human?" Another replied, voice trembling. "They didn't choose him. The fire did." In the lower districts, chameleon syndicates changed colors so rapidly they looked like living static. Survival instincts screamed through their collective minds. "This breaks every treaty," one whispered. "No," another corrected quietly. "It breaks every future." Deep beneath the city, where artificial night never lifted, the Vimo houses convened in shadow. No light, no ceremony, only hunger. "A union like that would not merely rule, it would overwrite us," an ancient Vimo murmured. "Then we make sure it never completes," another answered. Above them all, in the upper atmosphere where Draconian observers still hid among false moons, alarms ignited. Not technological, biological. The old blood reacted. Draconian warlords, those who had ordered the twins' deaths, felt it in their marrow. Their flames flared uncontrollably, ancient instincts screaming that something had gone terribly wrong. A female line, a human bond, DNA from Earth. The prophecy they had buried was moving. Back in the command spire, Archibald felt it too, not as fear, but as pressure, the kind that came before war declarations and extinction-level decisions. Screens ignited around the chamber without being summoned. Emergency councils, unauthorized fleet movements, encrypted assassination probabilities. Lutonia was fracturing in real time. Bellyth stood rigid, dreams drawn tight, her jaw clenched as reports flooded in. "They're mobilizing," she said. "Our kind, and others." Mythia's voice was quieter, heavier. "They won't wait for a ceremony. They never do." Archibald watched the chaos unfold with the stillness of someone who had seen this pattern before, over and over, across stars and centuries. When power shifts, those who benefited from the old world always call it treason. He turned to face the chamber, face the watching species, the recording drones, the unseen billions who would soon hear this story told in whispers and warnings. "Let them panic," Archibald said calmly. "Panic is honesty." Outside, Lutonia changed. Security shields rose, civilian districts locked down. Ancient species that had once sworn neutrality began choosing sides, some out of fear, others out of long-buried hope. For the first time since its founding, Lutonia was no longer just a refuge. It was a pivot point. Bellyth exhaled shakily. "We didn't want this many to suffer," she said. Archibald didn't look away. "Change always scares those who survived by keeping others small," he replied. "You didn't cause this, you revealed it." Mythia looked at him then, not as a commander, not as a symbol, but as a man standing between the past and something terrifyingly new. "They will come for you," she said softly. Archibald's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something harder. "They already have," he said. "They just don't know it yet." Far above Lutonia, Draconian fleets ignited their engines. Far below, forgotten species whispered prayers for the first time in generations. And across the universe, a single truth spread faster than fear. 2 orphaned dragon sisters had knelt before a human, and the universe had failed to stop it.
The command chamber sealed itself without a word, not by Archibald's order, by instinct. The walls dimmed, muting the noise of alarms, transmissions, and rising panic across Lutonia. For the first time since the twins had entered, the universe stepped back and gave them a moment that felt almost human, almost fragile. Bellyth finally let her wings unfold, just a fraction, not in threat, not in pride, but in exhaustion. The fire along her scales dimmed from blazing ember to a soft, wounded glow. Mythia sat down on the cold floor. She did not care that others were watching. Her strength had always been quieter than her sister's, and now it was spent. Archibald noticed everything. The slight tremor in Bellyth's hands, the way Mythia's shoulders curled inward as though she were bracing for a blow that had not yet come, the way both of them kept their eyes lifted, waiting, not for an answer, for judgment. Archibald removed his gloves. The sound was soft, almost insignificant, but it drew their attention immediately. Humans did not bare their hands in dangerous moments unless they meant to show something real. He lowered himself, not kneeling, not towering, until he was seated on the edge of the platform, level with them. No commander now, no symbol, just a man. "You've been standing alone for a long time," he said quietly. Bellyth's breath hitched before she could stop it. "We learned early that standing together made us targets." Mythia nodded faintly. "So we learned how to look strong apart, even when it hurt." Archibald looked between them. "You know what humans do when the world tells us we shouldn't exist?" he asked. They waited. "We survive anyway," he said. "And then we make damn sure no one else has to." Bellyth's eyes burned, not with flame, with something dangerously close to tears. "You don't understand," she said, voice raw. "If this fails, it won't just be us. They'll use our names as a warning. They'll teach future daughters to be smaller, quieter, easier to erase." Mythia finally broke. Her voice cracked, not loudly, but deeply. "I don't want to be remembered as a mistake. I don't want our mother to have died for nothing." The words fell between them like shattered glass. Archibald closed his eyes briefly, just a breath. Then he opened them again, steady, resolved. "You're not mistakes. You're the reason the old world is afraid." He reached out, not touching yet, letting them choose. Mythia was the first. She placed her hand in his. It was warm, not burning, alive. Bellyth followed slower, her fingers trembling as they wrapped around his. 3 hands, 3 histories, 3 species. No ceremony, no vow, just contact. "You didn't come here to be saved. You came here because you were brave enough to believe something better was possible." Bellyth swallowed hard. "And you?" she asked. "Why don't you turn away?" Archibald met her gaze fully now. Because I've seen what happens when the universe decides some lives are expendable, and I refuse to let it make that decision again. Outside the sealed chamber, fleets maneuvered, councils screamed, ancient powers sharpened their knives. Inside, 3 souls sat quietly in the eye of the storm, and for the first time since they were born, the twin dragons were not alone, not as heirs, not as weapons, not as prophecy, but as people worth choosing.
It began with the floor. Not cracking, not shaking, remembering. The black alloy beneath them warmed, veins of light threading through it like slow-moving blood. Symbols long buried beneath Lutonia's foundations stirred. Runes no council had approved, no architect had designed. Older than the city, older than treaties, older than fear. Bellyth felt it first. Her breath caught sharply as the fire in her chest responded, not flaring outward, but folding inward, compressing, focusing. It felt like standing at the edge of a memory that wasn't hers. "Mythia," she whispered. Mythia's eyes had gone distant, pupils reflecting something that wasn't in the room. Her flame dimmed until it was almost invisible, then pulsed, slow and deep, like a heartbeat beneath stone. "I hear it," Mythia said softly. "Not voices, not words." She looked at Archibald. Intent. The air thickened, not with heat, but with presence. Archibald felt it settle over his shoulders like an unseen mantle, not oppressive, not commanding, acknowledging, the way a mountain acknowledges the sky, not as ruler, but as equal. The relics between them began to rise. Slowly. No force touched them, yet they lifted, rotating gently, runes igniting one by one. The light they cast was not draconian red, nor human white, but something blended, unfamiliar, unsettlingly calm. A low resonance filled the chamber. Not sound, meaning. Bellyth stood without realizing she had moved. Her wings spread wider now, not in defense, but because something ancient inside her finally had space to breathe. "This wasn't supposed to happen yet," she murmured. "The elders said the prophecy only awakens after the bond is sealed." Mythia shook her head slowly. They lied. They always did. The symbols in the air rearranged themselves, no longer forming the rigid, blood-soaked verses the Draconian priests had memorized. The old lines burned away, rewritten in living light. Not a command, a revelation. Archibald felt a sudden, piercing clarity. Not visions, not destiny, but understanding. "This prophecy isn't about rule," he said quietly. Bellyth turned to him. "It never was," she replied, her voice trembling with realization. "It's about permission." The chamber darkened completely. Then, light. Not blinding, not violent. A soft convergence above them, where human presence and draconian fire met and did not reject each other. A voice emerged, not male, not female, not singular. Ancient, patient. Fire was never meant to rule alone. nor was earth meant to kneel. When the rejected choose each other, the crown becomes a burden shared. Bellyth's knees weakened. "The first female ruler," she whispered. "It doesn't say one." The voice continued. "Two flames were born because one could not carry it alone. The human was not chosen to conquer, but to anchor." Mythia's hand tightened around Archibald's. "Our children," she said, barely audible. "They feared them." Archibald's jaw set. They feared what couldn't be controlled. The light shifted again, not forming images of domination, not visions of thrones stacked atop broken worlds. Instead, a universe connected. Species standing, not kneeling. Power flowing laterally, not downward. Strength defined not by extinction, but endurance. Then the final truth burned itself into the air. The offspring of fire and soil will not rule the universe. They will make it impossible for one will to ever rule it again. The light faded. The runes settled. The chamber returned to stillness. No thunder, no applause. Just three beings standing in the aftermath of something irrevocable. Bellyth exhaled shakily. "They twisted it," she said, "turned it into a weapon." Mythia nodded, "and killed for it." Archibald looked at them, really looked at them. "They were afraid," he said, "because this ends the age of singular crowns." Outside the sealed chamber, fleets still moved, enemies still plotted. War had not vanished, but something far more dangerous had. Certainty. The universe no longer belonged to those who inherited power through blood alone. It now belonged to those brave enough to share it. And the prophecy, no longer dormant, no longer chained, had chosen its witnesses.
Archibald did not speak right away. He stood there while the last traces of light faded from the air, while the chamber returned to metal and shadow, while the universe pretended it had not just revealed its hand. But inside him, something had shifted. He had commanded fleets, ordered evacuations that doomed millions to save billions, signed accords knowing full well they would be broken the moment his back was turned. He knew the cost of choice. And now, for the first time in his life, that cost had a face. Two of them. "If this goes forward," he said, finally, his voice low, measured, carrying the weight of someone who already knew the answer. "Humanity stops being neutral." Bellyth's flame dimmed slightly. Mythia stiffened. Archibald turned away from them, his gaze fixing on the vast window overlooking Lutonia. The city still glowed, unaware that history had just leaned its direction. Humanity survived because we stayed adaptable, because we never bound ourselves too tightly to gods, crowns, or bloodlines. He paused. "This binds us." The silence that followed was not fearful. It was respectful. "They won't see this as unity," Archibald said. "They'll see it as humans choosing a side, choosing power." Mythia swallowed. "They will come for your world," she said quietly.
Archibald nodded once. Yes. The word was simple. Final. They'll say Earth corrupted the prophecy, that we inserted ourselves where we didn't belong, that we manipulated 2 orphaned dragons for our own future. Bellyth's jaw clenched. That won't be true. No, Archibald agreed. But truth has never been what starts wars. He turned back to them now, and for the first time since they had met him, they did not see the commander. They saw the man who carried an entire species on his shoulders. Humanity will lose allies, trade routes will collapse, systems that tolerated us will close their gates, some will attack us preemptively, out of fear. Bellyth stepped forward. Then don't do this, she said, voice tight. We didn't come to destroy your people. Archibald looked at her for a long moment, then he shook his head. No, he said softly. You came to tell me who we are. Mythia frowned slightly. Archibald took a breath. Humanity has always said we value freedom, that we stand against tyranny, inherited power, enforced destiny. His eyes hardened, not with anger, but resolve. If I walk away now, if I decide this costs us too much, he let the sentence hang. Then we were never what we claimed to be. The silence that followed settled deep. Outside, somewhere beyond Lutonia's sky, humanity's enemies and allies alike were already recalculating. Inside the chamber, Archibald made his choice. I won't let Earth become a species that survives by pretending not to see injustice when it asks for help. Bellyth's breath caught. Mythia's eyes glistened. This will paint a target on you, Mythia whispered. Archibald gave a faint, almost tired smile. Humanity has lived with targets on our backs since the day we looked up at the stars. We're still here. He stepped closer to them now, not as commander, not as savior, as an equal. If standing with you costs us comfort, we'll endure. If it costs us safety, we'll adapt. And if it costs us peace, his voice dropped, then we'll redefine what peace is supposed to mean. Bellyth's wings trembled openly now. You would risk your entire species for us? Archibald did not hesitate. For what you represent. A universe where no child is hunted for being born different. He extended his hands again. This time, there was no hesitation. Bellyth took one. Mythia took the other. And in that moment, humanity crossed a line it could never uncross. Not into domination, but into responsibility. Outside the chamber, fleets continued to move. War still loomed. But somewhere, deep in the shared marrow of 3 worlds, a future was chosen. Not because it was safe, but because it was right. The chamber had fallen silent. 3 figures stood together, human and dragons, in the eye of a storm that stretched across Lutonia and beyond. The prophecy had awakened, not as a threat, not as a command, but a challenge the universe had never faced. Archibald looked at Bellyth and Mythia, their hands intertwined with his, their fire and hope trembling but unbroken. He did not flinch. He did not hesitate. This, he said quietly, is what we stand for.
Outside, the fleets of countless species shifted in the darkness, unaware that the first choice had already been made. The first step toward a future no one dared imagine. And in that moment, the universe waited, holding its breath for what would come next.